The marble floors of Caldwell Enterprises gleamed like a frozen lake, reflecting the towering glass walls and the distant shimmer of the skyline. Every morning, Marcus arrived before dawn, pushing his janitor's cart quietly down the endless corridors, his footsteps muffled by the corporate hush. To most employees, he was invisibly an anonymous figure in a faded blue uniform. Yet Marcus moved with the slow precision of someone who had once been something else entirely, someone who still carried dignity no matter how many floors he mopped. At precisely 6:35 a.m., when the coffee machines began humming and the first executives trickled in, Marcus would see a small boy sitting cross-legged on the plush bench outside the executive suite. The boy was maybe 9, with sandy blonde hair, restless hands, and a look in his eyes that Marcus recognized, a loneliness masked by curiosity. The boy's name was Ethan, the only child of Vivian Caldwell, the CEO herself. He was usually accompanied by a nanny who scrolled endlessly on her phone while Ethan sat quietly, sketching in a worn notebook. Marcus had learned to nod hello to Ethan, and Ethan had started nodding back, until one day, the boy spoke. "Why do you clean every day?" Ethan asked softly, glancing at Marcus's mop. Marcus paused. "Because someone has to keep this place from turning into a mess," he replied with a gentle smile. "But you don't look like you want to be here." Marcus chuckled. "Sometimes life puts you where you're needed, not where you planned to be." After that, Ethan began waiting for Marcus each morning. He would whisper questions about the cleaning solutions, about how the building's elevators worked, about the city skyline, and Marcus, without thinking too much, would answer. He found himself telling Ethan small stories about perseverance, about how every job mattered, about kindness. In those early mornings, a strange, wordless bond formed between the janitor and the CEO's son. Vivian Caldwell, however, was unaware of this connection until the day she arrived early. Vivian was the archetype of corporate power. Tall, impeccably dressed, her heels clicked on the marble with the sound of authority. She had clawed her way up from a modest Midwestern town, and nothing would compromise her reputation or her son's safety. She rounded the corner and froze. Her son was sitting on the floor, laughing at something Marcus had just said. "You're not supposed to be near my son," Vivian snapped, her voice sharp as glass. The hallway fell silent. The nanny fumbled with her phone, standing awkwardly. Marcus straightened, his hands gripping the mop handle. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said evenly. "We were just talking." "I don't care what you were doing," she said, eyes narrowing. "You are here to clean floors, not interact with my child." Ethan's eyes filled with panic. "Mom, he's not quiet, Ethan," she said curtly, not looking at him. She turned back to Marcus. "Stay away from my son. Do you understand?" Marcus could have nodded and walked away. He could have apologized. But something in Vivian's tone, something brittle and fearful, made him stand his ground. He looked at her not with defiance but with a calm gravity that unsettled her. "Mom," he said softly, "I would never harm your son. In fact, you don't know it, but a man like me once saved his life." Vivian blinked, thrown off. "What are you talking about?" Marcus drew in a slow breath. 5 years ago, a playground across the river, a runaway truck, a boy in the street. Vivian's face drained of color. "Thatter." Marcus nodded. "That was me. I pulled him away. I never forgot his face. I only realized it was him last month, when I saw Ethan here." The hallway tilted. Vivian grasped for composure, but Ethan was staring at Marcus with wide, astonished eyes. "Mom," Ethan whispered, "is that true?" Vivian's lips parted, then closed. She remembered the news article, the frantic moments, the stranger who disappeared before she could thank him. She had hired investigators but they found nothing. Now here he was in a janitor's uniform, holding a mop. Marcus cleared his throat. "I'm not saying this for gratitude. I just don't want you to think I'm some stranger lurking around your child. Sometimes the world is smaller than we think." The CEO said nothing. Her son looked at her, pleading silently. Finally, Vivian turned on her heel. "Ethan, "Come," she said. "We're late." But her voice had lost its edge. That night, Vivian couldn't sleep. She replayed the moment in the hallway over and over, trying to reconcile the two images of the unknown hero who had saved her child, and the janitor scrubbing her hallways. In her mind, people were usually easy to categorize: board members, investors, staff, outsiders. But Marcus didn't fit neatly anywhere. The next morning, she arrived early again. Marcus was wiping down a glass wall, his back to her. Ethan sat nearby, clutching his sketchbook. Vivian hesitated, heels hovering above the marble, then spoke. "Broken bar, Marcus, is it?" He turned, surprised. "Yes, Mom. I owe you an apology," she said carefully. "You don't owe me anything." "I do," she said. Her eyes flicked to Ethan, then back. "I spoke out of fear, not reason." Marcus studied her face. "Fear can be powerful," he said. "It makes people build walls where bridges could be." Something in his tone, neither bitter nor deferential, stirred something old in her. She had built a whole empire out of walls. Bridges were for the Matilda Macron. Yet here was a man who had once risked his life for a stranger's child, and now scrubbed her floors. Over the next weeks, Vivian found herself watching Marcus from a distance. She noticed how he treated everyone the same: the mailroom clerk, the vice president, the security guards. He remembered their names. He noticed when someone was having a bad day. Ethan blossomed in his presence, talking more, smiling more. Vivian was torn. Her instincts told her to keep distance, but another voice, one she hadn't heard in years, whispered that maybe she'd been wrong about people. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday. Ethan had an asthma attack in the lobby while his nanny was distracted. Marcus saw him collapse, ran over, and administered his inhaler from the emergency pack in Ethan's bag. He stayed with the boy until paramedics arrived. By the time Vivian rushed downstairs, Ethan was breathing again, clutching Marcus's hand. For a brief moment, Vivian saw something she had never allowed herself to imagine: her son looking safe, not because of her security systems, but because of someone else's kindness. Later that evening, after Ethan was home and stable, Vivian summoned Marcus to her office. Her assistant looked scandalized. No janitor had ever been in the CEO's office before, but she insisted. Marcus entered quietly, looking around at the gleaming shelves and panoramic view. Vivian gestured to the seat opposite her desk. "Please sit." He sat, hands folded. "I don't understand you," she said, not unkindly. "You saved Ethan twice, and yet you work here." "Why?" Marcus exhaled slowly. "Because this is where I ended up after my wife died. We had bills. I needed steady work. Cleaning doesn't bother me. I get to see the world from a different angle." Vivian's throat tightened. Broken bar, sorry." "Don't be," he said. "Life has a way of stripping us down to what matters." They sat in silence, the city twinkling behind them. Vivian realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd sat quietly with someone without checking her phone. Finally, Marcus stood. "I should get back to work." "Wait," she said. "Marcus, a broken bath, thank you." He nodded once. "Take care of your boy." After he left, Vivian looked at Ethan's photo on her desk. She thought about kindness, about selflessness, about power of the real kind. The kind that isn't in boardrooms but in ordinary acts. For the first time in years, she felt small, but in a good way, as if the universe was larger than her ambitions. That weekend, she took Ethan to the park. No nanny, no security detail, just the two of them. Ethan ran through the grass, laughing. Vivian sat on the bench and watched, remembering Marcus's words about bridges and walls. She opened her phone, drafted an email, and hesitated. Then she closed it and smiled at her son instead. On Monday, Marcus arrived at work to find a note taped to his cart. It was handwritten, neat and deliberate. "Thank you for everything. Let's talk about the future. Vivian C." He tucked it into his pocket, unsure what it meant but sensing that something had shifted, not just for him, but for her, for Ethan, maybe even for the whole building. In the quiet hallway, with only the faint hum of the city below, Marcus felt a rare thing blossom in his chest: hope.